And on the HawksZone Rundown, we're coming to you guys live after a 26-21 Seahawks over the Jets at MetLife Stadium to improve to 7-5 and stay atop of the NFC West, and we're leading our division. It was a gritty win. It was an ugly win. It was all the above, man. We're gonna get into all of that with you guys and your Q&A. Guys, get the comments in here as we get this intro going. So get the comments in here because we want to get a lot of Q&A action happen on the show too. So on the other side, we're going to break it all down for you.
Well, on the best corner of the game.
This run. What a run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leo Wilson with catch. Smith and Jimbo. The Seahawks are going to hold the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does. Is it going to be another 9 and 8?
Players who've got to finish something.
They have to fix the offense.
Part of the success and part of
ambition of being the LOB
One a year, that's trading DK Metcalf.
Play him aggressive.
This is the HawksZone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
Welcome back to the HawksZone, guys. We're coming at you live, 26-21 Seahawks over the Jets. Bryce, before we get into all of it, guys, if you're watching the video, you've been watching the video, and you haven't subbed yet, go down, hit the subscribe button for us, the like button, share the videos. All of it helps. You can throw in some super thanks, super chats too during the live Q&A. All of it's appreciated. Or just comment on the video, fire the questions in. All of it's awesome. We appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. So, Bryce, hey, man, look, we're 7-5. We went into MetLife. You and I talked about it, man. We had on the preview show sort of keys to this game to get out of here with a victory. I think they probably hit on some of the keys, but let's just talk about it, man. Let's talk about the game. Seahawks get out of there, man. It was ugly. It was gritty. There were some positives to the game, but you know what? One of my keys that I talked about, one of the most important ones that we talk about it, they got to fly all the way over to the East Coast, 10 a.m. Pacific time, really our time. People don't realize that sometimes it's tough. You got to be ready to go. They didn't look it at the beginning of the game. It was a slow start. It was ugly, man. We'll get into the special teams fiasco, whatever you want to call that. But man, overall, we're 7-5 now. You know, we take care of the Jets, who, you know, you and I were worried about. This could be one of those trap games, especially because we got the in between Arizona games. But yeah, hey, you gotta be happy where we're at right now. 7-5, 26-21 over the Jets, man.
Yeah, man. It was an interesting game, to say the least. It was probably one of the weirder games I've seen since maybe our Minnesota playoff win with Blair Walsh missing the kicker, the NFC Championship game where Russ threw 2 picks versus or 4 picks, I should say, versus Aaron Rodgers and got us to the Super Bowl. Loved what the defense did. The defense, and it's going to be one of our talking points tonight. This defense is legit. It is a legit unit now. Like this
real,
defense,
right?
It's for real. It's not some mirage that, they've had one game. They've now put it together 4 times. The run defense is alive and well. And, you know, they were put in really difficult spots today. I think they only gave up 1 true drive for a touchdown. Other than that, they got put in situations where it's hard. It's hard to keep a team out of the end zone when all of a sudden your returner fumbles the ball and they start on your own 27. It's pretty hard to just be thrown out into that situation. But they rallied and they played well the rest of the game. But there's a lot of things, like, it's good to get these types of wins. Right? These help build culture. They build belief in what Mike McDonald's trying to get these guys to buy into, right? It's games like this that you do need. What I will say, though, is I don't want this to be a false sense of security because there's still a lot of glaring issues with this team, and it's on the other 2 sides of this ball, which is special teams and our offense. Our special teams are horrible today. Outside of Jason Myers' field goals, it was horrible. We had another blocked PAT. You know, we had a kickoff return for a touchdown. Our returners couldn't hang on to the ball. And I don't know. We'll get into the offense later on in the show. And I've got some pretty strong takes on it. But what I will say is, amongst all that, Gino didn't turn the ball over today. He played mistake-free football, which is what we both said was going to be a
You
key.
said he was a key for sure, man.
It was a big key. He had to play mistake-free, and there were points in this game I was going, oh gosh, I almost had that gut feeling of this is the type of game where something's going to happen and it's just going to unravel, kind of like that Rams game where it started to get that way. But he didn't. He kept his cool, and overall, a win's a win. You take them. You got a 2-game lead in the NFC West now because of the Vikings coming back and helping us out versus the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
So now it makes next week's game all that much more important for them to get another win versus Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, man, we got to talk to special teams. Like, I don't remember the last time I've seen a special teams play like that, like on any team. Like, that could be possibly the worst special teams I've ever seen. I don't know if that's maybe a stretch, but you talk about everything went wrong. Like, D. Williams first muffs the return, and then they recover, and they score. And was it immediately after that Chenault bobbled it, but he recovered it?
Yes.
The very next kick. So you're like, oh my, you're just, sigh of relief. They take one of the house. So they take one about, I don't even know, 9-9.
Well, and think about how that happened. We had just gone down the field and scored to make it 14-7, and we're like, okay, we're going to get back in this.
Well,
And
that's
then,
what I think. And I
boom.
texted you right before because let's give credit where credit's due. You talk about the defense. Leonard Williams, by far the player of the game. I mean, it's not even a question. He saved the game because I texted you at one point and I said special teams might have lost us this game in the second quarter because really they should have came down. Aaron Rodgers misses Garrett Wilson there. Like, that should have been a TD. So that was right before the Leonard pick. So that would have put them up 28-7. So as bad as the Jets are this year, and that's what a bad team does, right? They're missed wide open throws. They keep you around and they get you back in the game. Any 500 team or better really this year would have put that away, and that would have been right on the special teams and Jay Harbaugh. I mean, you look at that, and so Leonard, that was a 14-point swing with that pick and take to the house. That was a 14-point swing, and honestly, it felt like a brand new ball game. Because now you're only down 7, you had to feel super pumped up. And I think the team, I mean, without it, man, it would have been really, really, really tough. And then Chenault fumbles another one. I mean, it was just, and my question is, and I know people are going to talk about that. People have been talking about this. We've talked about it a long time ago. Like, how many more chances does this kid get, D. Williams? It's like, first of all, it was a question mark even taking up a full roster spot. I thought for sure you got to bench this guy the rest of the game, but he was back out in the field, man. I mean, to me, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I mean, I'd rather put anybody else out there right now.
Yeah, so when D. Williams initially was capped, my thought process behind D. Williams was, okay, he showed some things in the preseason, like he looked like he could, be the returner, but he also offered you an ability where if in a pinch a DB goes down or receiver, he could step in if you needed him to during the game, like being an active game day situation, right? Because we lose a corner, he can step in theoretically. I don't think it's worth it anymore. I don't think it warrants a roster spot. I think I would not be shocked if when they activate Chenna, he's not the guy that gets cut for Chenna to be activated to the 53. It's baffling to me. Like, all he's done is he's done more negative things than positives right now in our return game. And outside of Laviska Shenault's one kick return versus the 49ers at home, he may not have fumbled, but he hasn't been any more effective. Like, realistically, he hasn't. Like, I would rather see, and I'm going to throw this in here right now from Corey, one of our, guys in the Q&A or one of the people in the Q&A. Cody White and Kenny McIntosh should do returns.
Dude, anybody. Kenny
Mac,
DJ Dallas, we joke about it, but he catches the ball, he secures it, and the offense comes on the field. That's all you care about. Breaking it and taking it to the house is icing on the cake bonus.
Well, think about it. There hasn't been a whole lot of those this year anyways. Like,
well, there's not going to be. And the point is that
I don't know.
But if you're fumbling the ball, it takes, even if he took it to the house 4 or 5 times this year, it negates it all. Like, it's like if Dante Hall back in the day and those guys, would do their thing, take it to the house, but then they'd fumble the ball and mismanage, where to, fair catch it or whatever. I mean, it wouldn't be good enough,
Well,
right?
and the big part too, if you think about that era of return games, a lot of what teams did was they'd set up the wall. So you'd catch it on the right side of the field if
Yeah.
that's where the punt landed, and they'd come back left, and guys could tee off on the blind side block. You can't do that anymore.
No, they're
So that's
taking it out
kind
of
of
the
created
game.
the yeah, they've taken it out of the game. So that takes an effective part of the return out of the game. Um, and so I kind of look at it and I'm like, why? Why are we wasting this roster spot? Like Brian Walters on our Super Bowl team literally fair caught the ball every single punt
But
and just
if you
put our
look at it
offense out
now, if
there.
you look at the new rules, like everyone's still probably trying to figure them out, right? But if you take a knee in the end zone, you're at the 30, right? So there's really no reason to even take it out of the end zone, and that's what the NFL is trying to promote, right? They don't want anyone to take it out, the player safety, garbage, that they say they're promoting, and then I still think they should, if they're going to do all this, I just eliminate the kickoff altogether. But I just think, he's got to be cut. I mean, that's the thing.
He has
I
to be.
cringe every time he comes out there. So, like you said, if there's a guy coming off IR, he has to be the guy. Because, like you talked about the corner DB spot, and that's what we all thought coming in. But now, that seems pretty cemented. He's not going to come in and unless it's a complete emergency situation. If that's the case, bring a guy off the practice squad, right? At this point, it's just frustrating. It was frustrating to me to see that he wasn't actually benched though the rest of the game. I mean, to me, it's like I felt like a message had to be finally sent to this guy, whether you think it's going to get through to him or not. But I mean, I don't see why you're bringing him back. Like he mentioned, Corey mentioned, yeah. Why not Kenny Mack? Why not Cody White?
Well, I don't get it. Kenny Max,
I don't
even in
I
this
don't get it.
offensive or with this coaching staff, still seems to be in a doghouse of some sort.
It's weird.
And it is weird. I don't know if it's he doesn't understand the playbook or whatever it is, but it's kind of an odd situation. But no, overall, and then to make matters worse, you lose Michael Dixon, so you can't
Oh
punt,
my
even though it
God.
did benefit Seattle. They had to go for it.
No,
You
well,
couldn't punt.
I was confused when they got the penalty because it was 4th and 1. I'm like,
Oh, I
they're still
know.
going for it, and then it was before they showed Dixon on the sideline, right? And then
Yeah, and he has back spasms. So I wouldn't be
he's
surprised if you don't see Seattle bring a punter onto the practice squad this week and elevate him for game day if you don't know about Michael Dixon. Like
well, did they mention Dixon? Was it just spasms?
that's what they're saying it is, but like my thought process on that is like we've said, it's a long flight back.
You're right.
He's going to be sitting on a plane for multiple hours. It's not going to feel any better. He's going to probably get treatment, all that stuff. But if I'm Seattle, I'm bringing in punters and I'm signing a punter to the practice squad for a week or two,
Right.
because if Michael Dixon goes down, I would rather elevate a guy on game day as a backup punter. I know it sounds crazy, than have D Williams out there. Because if I lose Michael Dixon halfway through the game, at least I can still punt. Because again, there were situations in this game where Seattle went for it because they couldn't punt on like their own 30 late in the game. And it's like, you don't ideally want to be doing that. Like
No,
there was
you
like
don't.
9 minutes left and we're going for it on our 30-yard line. It was brutal that way. And so I don't know, special teams, like in my opinion, I think Jay Harbaugh's on thin ice going into this offseason because Larry Izzo ran a much better special teams unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have big returns, but nobody did. I was a much bigger fan of Larry Izzo. We let him go. He went back to New England. I think there's a good chance that he's on thin ice if this unit doesn't get its shit together, because
I mean, that
a
was
mess.
pretty historically bad, man. I mean,
It was extraordinarily bad, 100%.
I mean,
I didn't
know
argue
what I was.
14
What
of
were
those
you watching?
points.
Yeah.
14 of the Jets' points were because of our special teams. It wasn't because of
Right.
our defense, like let them march the field.
Mhm.
It was because our special teams gave them the ball, like literally on our doorstep, and the Jets just punched it in. Which you put that up again. We make the playoffs. If that's against a Green Bay that we're going to see in a couple of weeks, or a Minnesota, or Detroit, or someone like that, that could be the nail in your coffin in your season, because you're not going to be able to come back from that. Luckily, the Jets defense, and their ability to just take penalties after penalties kept us in this game, because that was the other thing that was ridiculous, was the amount of penalties the Jets kept taking that hurt themselves. They literally extended one drive for us.
You really saw what a 3-8 team, why they're a 3-8 team. You kind of see certain things, like especially in the first half, Aaron's smiling, feeling good. It looks like they're moving the ball a little bit, and they're like, okay, they're taking a few shots down the field. and you're like, okay, you know what? Maybe they're on today. Maybe they, they're coming off the bye week, and they got a nothing to lose type mentality. And then you just saw what bad teams do, man. They just shoot themselves in the foot, and it was great for us because it kept us in this ball game. And like you mentioned, that one drive that it was near late in the game, and it allowed us to. There's just so many things the Jets did that allowed us to stay in this game and then eventually, take the lead and then cap it off, man. Before we get into, some of the offense and a few of the other things, man, guys, keep funneling in the questions, man. We're going to get to them for sure, comments, but I know you touched on it, real quick, but let's touch on this defense, and talk about, they were put in a couple of tough situations because of the special teams. But you just feel like, again, I felt like this week, it definitely didn't start off like it did against Arizona, like the team just had to wake up a little bit. But then when things got going and you just felt like guys were on it again, from the linebacker play to, Leonard Williams, an absolute freak of nature again. Talk about it, man. Like, I just feel like with the amount of offensive problems we have, and there's problems, but this defense just seems like this is just going to keep building on its own here. And I feel like this defense just feels like we have a foundation that could really be something here for the next long time, man. Like, what's your feeling? How you feeling? I know you touched on it, but I mean, if anybody thinks, to me, man, this defense is real. And it's exciting. It's exciting. And the one thing I'll touch on too, that the one thing where it's like, I feel like guys are bought in completely, and you see when someone's not, they're hearing about it. When they had that 3rd and 26 there, and I don't know if you noticed that when Julian Love just gave it to Reek there, because it looked like, man, he looked a little lazy on that play. But overall, man, it just feels like, hey, if you want to be here, you're going to get held accountable because this defense is for real.
No, and like, you can honestly say it. The defense is actually, and I'll put it up here. This defense is legit. They're real. Right. They're not going anywhere. They've done it 4 games in a row now. They've held, multiple running backs that are considered top running back to under 100 yards. I'll give John Schneider this. His last 2 seasons of in-season trades, he's knocked out of the park in Ernest Jones and Leonard Williams. And Leonard Williams, by far, it's so refreshing and so nice to, for once, not look at the Seahawks and go, oh, shit, we got our asses kicked by another top interior defensive player. He's just wreaking havoc on us. It's nice to have that guy for once and be like, oh, yeah, Big Cat's going to go out and destroy that, like wreck that team's game. Yeah. Their game plan is going to be thrown out the window because of Big Cat. And, it was really cool on that Mike McDonald schemed up on that interception for Big Cat was he knew he was coaching against Aaron Rodgers, who's seen everything, every sort of coverage, every sort of rush. So what it was they coached it up where if you watch Big Cat, he like goes in and he's engaging until the guard gives him resistance. And once the guard gives him resistance, he bails. And so your cue as the quarterback at that point is, oh, I've got 4 guys rushing, and you don't account for that D lineman dropping. Because normally D lineman will drop right off the snap. Well, the way that was coached was you engage until you feel resistance, and then you bail. Because then he's accounted for. And it was awesome to see that, he gets there, he picks it, and then he finishes it. And he was moving, man. Like, that was a big man moving. And it changed. It honestly changed the complexity of the game when that happened. Like, that was where you were like, okay, Seattle's still in this. Like, the defense is still here. And it gives you more. And the thing is, you can literally run this whole unit back next year. Like, there isn't a whole lot of them that are on contract extensions that are expiring. You can bring a majority of this team back on defense. And it's like you're building something finally now. Tyrese Knight, I thought, played well again at linebacker, beside Ernest Jones. Holland Mafe did a decent job, but I will say it's the pass rush outside of Leonard Williams. When I say Holland Mafe did well, they did well in the run game.
Right.
Pass rush has kind of fallen off, so it'll be nice to see Chenna come back and actually maybe help boost that a little bit. Maybe he spills Hall a little bit more. So, they can get a bit more of a rotation going in there. And Byron Murphy, I think, the thing for Byron Murphy that'll be, hopefully, if Seattle can address it in the offseason this year, is to get a nose tackle. Byron Murphy's not a nose tackle. He's a 3-tack.
Yeah.
But he's having to play so much nose tackle because of the fact they don't truly have one. Hankins hasn't really lived up to his billing. So, but overall, man, like, it was interesting to see Julian Love go after Reek because it seemed like he was going after him about effort on that play.
Yeah, exactly.
So overall, though, dude, like, it's nice to feel the defense, feel that defense in Seattle again.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, the biggest difference is that those run numbers, man. And that was the biggest thing. And that's why it was so frustrating early in the year when, people were quick to jump on Mike about like, man, doesn't feel like things have changed. And that's where the patience comes in, and everybody can be guilty of it. But because we've seen for the last, I don't know how many years, where teams would just run it down our throats, and now we're finally being consistent. Like I think they talk about this. You look at the stats today with Breece Hall. Again, like, just didn't do much. And a couple little runs here and there, but we really kind of put them to bed. And then we put it more on Aaron. It was beautiful, man. And it's just that's the biggest thing that's happening right now is this run defense is really coming together. And I just don't think it's any coincidence, or I don't think it's any mistakes or coincidence that it really started clicking when, like you mentioned, 2 in-season trades that John's hit out of the park. Ernest Jones, man, like I said, he comes in here and I'm not saying he's the sole reason, but he comes in here. Then you have the bye week. Things are starting to click. I mean, he came in to play the Rams and he looked good, but then you had the bye week. Things are really clicking. And like I said, just the attitude and the confidence right now and the swagger with this defense. I think what was it at one point when they had it 3rd and 25, 26, they're out there. They're just getting, they're pumped on the field. They're getting, just as a unit together. And it just looked like, okay, this is a unit now. This defense is confident that they can take it to new heights. And you love to see it because that's kind of the identity of Seahawk football here. It has been for the last, early on in the Carroll era. And then we fell off, and we feel like now with the Mike era here, I'm just, you know what, man, I know it was an ugly game. There were some ugly aspects. We talk about Jay Harbaugh and the offense, but I got to say, man, to be 7-5, we look at it, it's been a roller coaster year. It's crazy this year. It's really been, it's a high, the roller coaster is like a little crazier than I thought. Like the highs and the lows, if really in the last couple months, it's been really interesting, man. But you look at it as a whole, to be 7-5, we're leading our division and we're healthy. We have a healthy lead right now. You mentioned Arizona losing. We go into their house next week, and we can take care of business, man. It's looking really, really good for us, man. Really good for us. So I just overall, I'm excited in the direction of this team, and it's because of the defense. And obviously, we got to get this offense right, and we'll talk about this offense. We got to get it right, and I don't know how to do that or how they're going to do that, but I'd rather them start with this defense getting right, which it looks like it is, and then you can't fix everything, and then we can worry about this thing because you got that defense. You feel like, okay, we got this identity, we got this foundation. Now let's just fix this offense where we can be respectable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And you know what? I guess we'll get into that right now. And it's going to take, a majority of our time. But before we actually do that, let's get into some of these comments we've had here throughout. So we got this one from Ian Victor, who's one of our regulars. He's always in our chats and our shows. Appreciate you, Ian. How do we have 10 opportunities at the goal line at the Jets' 1-yard line, and we couldn't even get a yard? I saw Mike McDonald hot on Mike asking, why were we throwing the ball at the 1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just to speak to what Ian's talking about, in the third quarter there, Seattle got down to the Jets 4. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
9 or something?
Like 7 or 9 plays inside the 4. And the thing and this is what leads, we'll get into the discussion more and more, but Ian, like, I'm going to go a little bit off on a rant about this today. it's really, for me, as you know, a lot of people, there's always been the debate, Gino is the OC or is it Gino? My honest opinion here, man, is it's more on the offensive coordinator now than ever. You know, he is, you know, watching the all 22, which I've had the luxury to start watching already. There is sometimes nowhere for Gino to go with the ball. There's no check down, there's no quick game. And in regards to being inside the goal line, there's no creativity down there. Like, there's none. The one rollout play that they called there with Gino, like, there wasn't anything there for him to throw to. And I don't know if it's, you know, Ryan Grubb isn't creative enough, or if it's, you know, he just has a mental block on what to do down there. But it's really scary because and this will go on. It's the 16th. I think it's the 16th. We've had 16 opening drives and we haven't scored a touchdown on any of them.
Yeah, I agree with all of it, but going back to the 10 plays or whatever, how many plays, my feeling was, it was like he was just flipping through his playbook. And
Yeah.
it was like, let's try this one now. Okay, oh shoot, we got another 4, or we got a brand new set of downs. Let's try this one now. You know, I felt, you know, that's what it felt like, and it was like he didn't really know what to do. Like, to start, I hate that play. The very first play where they at the 1 and they try to throw the fade to DK. I mean, it wasn't
doesn't
even
work. It's never worked.
It doesn't work. It never works, right? So why are you doing that? Scrap that, right? And then was it that drive? There's so many plays, and then it was like when
Then he threw the slant to
commentators were
DK
like,
later on
yeah,
the same sequence, which was another like dumb play.
And then the whole thing when the commentator, they're bringing their heavy set package. No, they don't have that, right?
No.
And it was like when you saw that happen again, you're like, no, like, dude, no, this never works. So to your point, it's like, when are you gonna have a certain plan and a flow, but you're doing the same thing, like running it up the gut because you need a yard. You know, this is my feeling now. Whenever we're 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, I cringe. I'd rather it be like 3rd and 3 or 4th and 3, because I feel like 4th and 1, we're gonna get stopped 90% of the time. Did you not get that feeling?
No,
I mean,
I'm honestly in the same boat with you, dude. As for myself, as an offensive coordinator, I love having it, you know, short yardage, because I go, sweet, I have everything at my disposal. I'm not just gonna go ram it right where you think I'm gonna go ram the ball. And if I really need a yard or a couple inches, cool. First down, QB sneak. Just go. Tap your center on the butt.
are they allergic to QB sneaks? I mean,
I don't know. I don't get it either. Like, your quarterback's 6'3",
he's a big
215. Like,
dude.
would you be able to get the QB sneak? And it's completely asinine that they don't call it. There's a whole bunch of things, you know, that we'll get into a little bit more on this in a little bit later here in the show, but we'll get through some more of these comments here.
Yeah.
Matt Simmons is on. Matt's always got good stuff. I saw after one of the muff kicks, JSN was begging Jay Harbaugh to let him be the returner.
Hey, why not?
Why not? JSN didn't in college.
Talk about a sure-handed dude.
Yep, but I get it. They're probably thought he's one of their top receiving weapons.
Yeah, I get it too.
But you got to figure something out. It's not D. Williams and Chenault. I would say, you know what, Cody White and Kenny Mack sound like a good combo back there to me at this point.
But you know, to his point, to JSN's point, you're sitting there watching, like, those guys are sitting there thinking the same thing. There's no trust in D. Williams. Absolutely no trust. So if you're JSN, be like, man, I can return a kick, no problem. And I know what you're saying. Of course, they're not going to put him out there, you know. But at the same time, he's thinking, man, if he's not going to do it, I'll go do it, because all we want to do is get the freaking offense back in the field. I mean, that's a killer. That is a freaking killer what those guys were doing outside. And the fact that this team stuck together and did what they did and pulled out a win with all, I mean, honestly, man, a lot of people, if people are firing in the comments, man, I'd like to hear if you guys have witnessed a worse special teams performance, because for this team to come out and pull out a gritty win with that special teams performance, really, I don't care how bad the Jets are, they're still an NFL team. You should lose that game with the way the special, and, you know, like I said, if it wasn't for the Leonard unbelievable play, they would have, you know, that was a huge that was the turning point in the game, really. I mean, that was the biggest turn. It was a 14-point swing, or at least a 10. Like, they would at least come out of there with 3. So, yeah, it was bad, man.
So here's another one from Matt. He goes, "This may be the type of game that helps build the team or helps the team come together. A very resilient bunch. I love it." Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the same time, I think last week he was there. It was a team where you came in and coming off and a team that coming off a bye and
Yeah.
that defense, the way they're coming together. I think that's one of this game's more. I don't know if it was coming together more like let's get the hell out of New York and put this one behind us.
Yeah.
Gritty win, and you're gonna have some ugly gritty wins, but there's just certain things that need to be cleaned up. Like I think this team is buying in with Mike. So I don't know if they're really more together. I look at that one like hey, I think they're on the plane, be like, man, we gotta win. Let's put this behind us kind of game. You know what I mean? Because uh there was some ugly things in that game, but they came back and they won, they put drives together. And it looks like a team that, hey, this is a winning football team right now. They're 7-5. This is the stuff they're supposed to do. Come back, put some of the mistakes behind them. Just like when Gino's thrown a couple picks before, like last week, the week before, put it behind him, came back, put drives together. And like you and I said, we got to clean it up. And Gino had a cleaner game. He had a clean game today as far as turnovers are concerned. So, yeah.
Here's another one from MWMM. I got a sneaky feeling Woolen could be hitting the trade block this offseason.
Yeah, man, I'm mixed on him, dude. Like, because if you think about it, if you keep him and commit to him, you're going to pay him a lot of money. And then it's going to come down to does this guy fit exactly what Mike wants, like coverage wise and stuff. But you talk about the play with Julian Love, like is that just some of the stuff he will continue to bring to the table? Just because like I remember Rob Staten on the show saying he's a 5th-round pick. He might be streaky at times. That's might what you might get that from him. What's your take on him overall? Like, is it up in the air, you think, or they think that this guy's a guy that is going to be a long-term no matter what?
I don't know. It'll be interesting with
tough, right?
Woolen. I think it's going to be something that they're going to have to look at long-term and see, because he's going to demand some money. You look at what Lenore just got in San Francisco, so he's going to demand some money. So it'll be an interesting discussion to have. I'm not out on Woolen. He's played well for majority of this year. I just think you got to figure out, is it a motivation thing? Like, what is it? So that'll be an interesting one. Hey, Ryan, I will be right back. I just think someone's at the door here. I just got to grab something, so I'll be right back.
Okay, we'll continue on the show, guys. Bryce is just going to keep the comments coming in. What do we got here? Rockman Drum coming up here. I'm a believer in Kenny, man. I want to see him play more. Like Kenny Mack, yeah. Like give him the ball, let him jump. Something's got to be done, right? I mean, I think you guys are thinking the same thing. Like just the short yardage, especially when it's 4th and 1. I feel like Grubb either doesn't know what to do or figures let's just try to run up the gut and maybe this time it'll happen. It's really a head scratcher for us when we're watching these games. But yeah, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but for me, man, Kenny McIntosh is a guy that I want to see. We're excited in the preseason when the way he's a dynamic runner, and the knock on him was his pass pro. But I mean, for what they're getting out of Zach, a little inconsistent there. I just think they got to mix it up a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on with Kenny Mack at practice, but it's one of those things that why not let Kenny see some action? But it's yet to be seen. But this team overall, man, I mean, I'd say we're gonna pull one up here from Mookie Alexander here. Yeah, that's the worst special team showing I've ever seen from the Seahawks. Commanders probably had the worst special teams game ever last week with 2 kick return TDs allowed and 2 missed PATs plus a missed field goal. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's definitely games out there, but it was almost just the avalanche of one after another. I think D fumbles the ball. Then Chenault he fumbles it, recovers it. Later on in the game, we have the 99-yard take it to the house, and then Chenault with another one. It was insane. I at some point it was like this. Bryce and I were texting back and forth, and it was basically one of those things where we're like, man, special teams just lost us this game in the second quarter, and then I think it was a couple plays after Leo gets the big play. So It's one of those things. Here's one about Sharbs. Yeah, Sharbs and short yardage has looked good behind the O line. Yeah, I mean he's been hit and miss for me. Sharbs is like I just feel like he's just not that explosive of a runner this season. I'm not sure what it is. It just seems like a little disappointing for where we took him. I think if we got him later in the draft, sometimes you look at that with guys, right? Kind of say, okay, well, he's a second rounder. That's going to stick with him for his tenure. But I think, and you kind of compare him with, Ken Walker that we got the season before. And you're like, well, we got Ken in the second round. We got Sharps in the second round. We expect more. We just it doesn't feel like that 1-2 punch. So I mean, he played a lot better today. He did get us a couple of first downs. So it's one of those things. But it's he's still a young guy, right? Only second year in the league, so he can still do some things here. Ian Victor coming in here. The more that I think about this, I think Geno would either be traded, 2-year extension with a quarterback being drafted, and sit and develop. I hear talks that Kirk Cousins could be gone from Atlanta. Yeah, I mean, I think when Bryce and I have been talking about it, the 2-year extension is probably more than likely in the future here with this team. I think they're definitely going to give him an extension. I just think where they're at, they don't have anybody sitting behind them. But Bryce and I, we've talked the last few episodes that I think this could be the year that they go out and they they draft a QB. And then he sits behind Geno. I think that's the way they got to do it. There's no, they talk about there's no real first round talent, and that could be good for the Seahawks because where we probably will pick, they might, we've talked about some guys that the Seahawks might go after as far as the quarterback's concerned. And, so if you can get one in the second round or third round, depending where they fall, this could be the year where, John goes out and finally takes a QB and then, sits behind, develops for a bit, and then we'll possibly have that next guy. But I just think, that's kind of where we think Geno's going to be. A couple more years here. I think they're going to give him an extension. So
all right, so I'm back. I've
got
got
more.
one
You
here.
are back. Yeah, pull something else up here.
Okay. So True to Sports. I love Geno, but I feel like he has issues in the red zone. I'm starting to feel like the red zone issues are actually more on Geno than on Grubb. It's been a constant issue for years now. Okay, that's one that kind of leads us into the offensive conversation. So I'll put the banner up. I'll just throw it up here.
Right.
This offense has issues. So for me, I'll be honest. When Ryan Grubb got hired here in Seattle, I was super excited because I saw what he did at Washington. I was like, oh, it's innovative. It's kind of different. And I kind of drank the Kool-Aid with a lot of people, about what was going to be the potential for, JSN and, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and this whole offense. The more I have now watched of this offense, and people can blame the O-line, people can blame Geno. Today, there's points where people are yelling like Geno's holding on to the ball too long, and that there's nobody fucking open, everybody. Like, there's a lot of times that Geno drops back and everybody is covered. And yes, he has a bunch of time. There's no checkdowns built in. There's no quick game in this offense. We saw it for like all of 2 games to begin the year, really, with New England and Denver. And after that, this quick game's disappeared. You have to build a balanced offense. You cannot just be, okay, when it comes to passing, we're only a deep shot team. That's all we're going to do, intermediate to deep. You have to give your QBs answers. And yes, Geno's a seasoned guy, and I'm not excusing some of Geno's red zone turnovers, but the play calling, like we talked earlier, that's third and less than 2 is completely lethargic. It looks like Ryan Grubb doesn't know what to call. Let's go smash ahead for trying to get a yard. You don't have the team, and it's been proven because you can barely run the ball when it's 1st and 10. Like Ryan, I am out on Ryan Grubb. And, I don't see him surviving because the offense is getting better. We talk about things coming together as this season's gone along. We wanted to see this defense start playing better. We wanted to see this team gelling. This offense is not getting better. It's either stagnant or getting worse. And just because JSN's been unlocked, and that's one phase to your offense. K9's being wasted right now. He really is. He was, what was his stat line today? Let me pull it up here. I got the box score. K9 was 3.1 yards per carry, 16 touches for 49 yards. Zach Charbonnet with 4 rushes for 28 yards and 1 touchdown, and he had 7 yards a carry. That is still under 80 yards rushing of the football on 20 carries.
Yeah.
That's not good enough. That is not going to break it, get you going in any which direction. Breece Hall, we kept him kind of bottled up, but he was still 12 carries for 60 yards and 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Breece Hall was drafted before Kenneth Walker. And everyone tied the two of them saying they was 2 elite backs. We are wasting Kenneth Walker, because our offensive line is bad, yes. But with that being said, I don't think Ryan Grubb's the only one that's going to be out of town. I think Scott Huff is going to be going with him.
I think it's pretty evident when we touched on it a few minutes back when they had about 10 shots at the 1 yard line to punch it in, and Grubb's flipping through his playbook trying to figure out a play, and then you cap it off with shotgun, and Gino spinning, and then here comes the house on them, and the worst case scenario happened. Where it's like, you automatically are going for it on the half-yard line. There's no question about it on 4th down, because worst case scenario, you have them pinned Aaron Rodgers in the end zone, thrown out of his own end zone, where you could pin your ears back. But we didn't even get that. They're at the 20. We give it to him at the 20. He takes a 20-yard sack. And that's on Grubb. Like, that was your final bread and butter play call. But that whole sequence was like, it was just a mishmash of stuff. Like, well, let's try this. Fade to DK. Now let's line up a shotgun when we're at our at the half-yard line. It was like, and the other thing is, man, we got how many times again are we putting a drive together and then we start going backwards again? There's a 5-yard loss on a a toss
screen,
a bobble screen, a toss to Ken that goes nowhere, a loss of 5 yards, or it just consistently happens like that. We're out of field goal range because of bad play calling. It's not like they're bringing the house down on Gino. It was just bad play calling. We're the Jets aren't even doing anything. We're just here's a toss to Ken, and just a bad play call, and he's tackled for a 5-yard loss. And it's like, just that today, those kind of things have been happening consistently, game in and game out. And like you said, you bring up a good point. The JSN getting unlocked sort of shadows some of the stuff that's really happening, because people are like, oh, we're finally getting JSN involved. JSN should be involved. He's a good receiver, but everything has to click. It's not like, well, now he's unlocked and everything else is locked, right? I mean, that doesn't work. And I think you and I talked about before we came on here today, Mike McDonald's not married to anybody here. Yeah. It's not like him and Ryan Grubb have this relationship. I think Mike McDonald's going to do what's best for Mike McDonald. He knows the team. Exactly. And well, that's what I mean. And so he knows, listen, I have to have a particular kind of offense. Just because I'm a defensive guy, it's like Carroll, right? When Carroll was here, he was a defensive guy, and we got the right pieces in here that formed, one of the best defenses ever. But he also had an offense that ran the ball down your throat, and that was the identity, right? So even though someone else was making the play calls, he had a certain offense that he wanted. And I think Mike is going to be no different, where if he doesn't like what's happening on this side of the ball, I think he'll be quick. And like you said, I think we have 5 games left. If I'm doing the math correct, 5 games, right? If correct. Ryan Grubb doesn't have an amazing turnaround, I don't see how that will happen. I just don't. So I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I would be, if this trend is exactly the same to finish the year off, even if we make the playoffs, to me, that's the only thing where my drawback would be the only.
I don't think the playoffs save him, because
I'm just saying, I'm not saying they will save him. I'm just saying it helps him. it helps him in the regard where Mike's saying, okay, maybe we run it back one more year. But I agree. I think I would like to see it change, no question. And I think Mike, there's a good chance he'll do it. But I'm just saying that would be his only saving grace. That would
So
be it. Nothing to do with what he's doing. Just that, hey, this team's. But I agree with you, man. I agree. I'm with you 100%.
So here's the reason why I say I doubt that saves his job if this trend continues. Look at what happened with Carroll his first year in Seattle. What did we do? We made the playoffs. Yeah, we were 7-9, but we made the playoffs and we beat the Saints.
Right.
What happened to Jeremy Bates, the offensive coordinator? He was fired because it didn't work.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where with what True Drew Sports is saying here too. If we make the playoffs, I doubt Grubb is gone. If Grubb's offense does not mesh and doesn't do what Mike McDonald wants it to do, he will be gone. There is no connection between Grubb and Mike McDonald or Scott Huff, Grubb and Mike McDonald if you want, because I think Huff and Grubb are a tandem deal. And as I know, and people I have talked to and people that I trust have told me, Ryan Grubb was the third option. It was really Arthur Smith, Mike Kafka, then Ryan Grubb. And so when there's another one here from Ian Victor, which OC would you want here to be next year? I'm out on Grubb. I got a feeling that John Schneider may be making a list right now or already has his list. And I think if the Jets fire Mike Kafka, he will be the guy that they'll peg as the OC to come here, because the only reason he wasn't named OC here was because the Giants gave him the ability to make play calls, which he didn't have the year before. So they elevated that ability, and then they took it away before the season started. Brian Daboll did. That's who I think is who they will, because they originally wanted Arthur Smith. I don't think Arthur Smith's going to be out of Pittsburgh. If anything, if he leaves Pittsburgh, it'll be for a head coaching job again. I think you'll see Mike Kafka be the potential guy that ends up being here. I'd be okay with that. And I know people are going to look at what the Giants are doing and go, oh, the Giants offense is horrible. Mike Kafka was instrumental in a lot of the stuff that the Kansas City Chiefs are doing with Andy Reid. He was with Andy Reid in Philadelphia before he left for Kansas City. Andy Reid spoke extremely highly of Mike Kafka, and Mike Kafka's gotten a raw deal with Brian Daboll in New York. And I think that's going to be the guy that they're going to peg as who they would replace Grubb with. He's got some NFL experience. He's called plays. And I think that's going to be one of the things that, they may look to next year. I don't know if it'll be Jordan Peets, who's the passing game coordinator. They may turn to him potentially if they don't get Kafka. But I think Kafka will be at the top of that list.
I mean, the offense, it's just bad.
It's lethargic, man.
It's lethargic. And we thought it was going to be so much more dynamic. You're hearing stuff about all these pre-snap motions and you're not going to know where DK is and all this kind of stuff, but it's just lethargic and it's getting predictable again, especially on the short yardage, run packages, and there's just nothing he's doing that's different. I don't know what his game plan is. I really don't. I think it feels like we're lost out there. But like I said, it wasn't more evident when we had a gazillion chances on the one, and he could not figure out a way to put it in the end zone. I mean, that was unreal.
Well, and like Rockin' Main Drum says, yes, we need more flip passes or dumps off to K9 or a tight end. I agree. AJ Barner scored today on a little dump off to him in the flat. Ken Walker needs to be more part of the passing game than what he currently is.
Yeah, we've been saying that, right? We've been saying make him like an LT, right? Like the way
exactly. Get him involved in all facets of your game. Armchair QB here. So Lou, but Gino had time. No one is open. The alignments are predictable. I can do laundry, look at a play, and predict run or pass. That's just what you're saying. There hasn't been a lot of ways of disguising what we're doing.
Right.
Mookie Alexander, who will be on the show tomorrow, guys, for Pulse of the Hawks, his bi-weekly segment on our show, our spinoff show. Mookie's, am I the only one alarmed at how often Walker and Charbonnet get tackled at the ankle? Seems like both RBs have issues with contact balance in ways that Chris Carson didn't have. Man, Chris Carson, I miss him. Man, I really miss Chris Carson. Because that dude could run through and just not fall down on first contact.
Well, he was the guy that really the since beast mode that you really got excited about. Mm-hmm. He was that guy. Wow. And then you talk about a guy from the 7th round, and just here's another guy that they found diamond in the rough. And just So physical and just such a awesome runner, man. You got excited. Look, I love Ken Walker, but it was something different with Chris. It was
Yeah.
like he would hit that hole and he would just, it was like one step, hit it. None of this bouncing. And, like you said, and this is not a knock on Ken, but sometimes he reverts back to that, pinball kind of action. And you didn't get that from Chris, man. It was head down. I want to physically hurt you too. He was a hell of a runner, man. It's just too bad his career got cut short with the injury, man. But yeah, talk about Chris Carson. Love him, man.
So here's another one. Ian Victor. Ian, the more I think about this, I think Geno would either be traded, a 2-year extension with a quarterback being drafted, sit and develop. I hear talks that Kirk Cousins.
I did bring that one up when you were.
Yeah, and so I'll just touch on it.
Hit on it.
I think this is the perfect draft for Seattle to take their developmental quarterback in rounds 2 to 5. And there's going to be some guys there. I'm going to do a breakdown of that a little bit later on, probably closer to January, on who I think some of the quarterbacks could be that Seattle could look at as guys to sit behind Geno. I think Geno is potentially going to get an extension. I think it's going to be 2 years.
I think it's in stone at this point.
Yeah, I think he's coming back. I think Mike McDonald actually really likes Geno, and I think the organization does. As much as we haven't heard John say it, I think they do.
Well, look, there's nothing like we like the guy. I think, and he's a perfect guy with this team, the way they're trending, to have another couple years here. And like you said, this is a great year for the Hawks because they're not going to draft high, but like you said, there's not first round talent. So there's a guy, if you like a guy, you can get him in, like you said, between round 2 and 4, and could be your guy. But the beauty part is he sits and develops, and which we've seen has been really good for quarterbacks. I'm excited to see what Michael Penix brings in maybe it's next year now, but it doesn't matter. He sits even sitting a whole year. We talked about that could have benefited Anthony Richardson or go down the list. So I think you and I agree. There's a lot of good things Geno brings. He brings a lot of good things. There's certain things, we've questioned decision making, but again, no, we're not gonna get a perfect guy in here if we don't bring Geno back. So 2 years makes sense, but I think it only makes sense if you draft a guy. I really I just think
you draft a guy with Geno's next contract. You have to.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So here's another one from Mookie. What will it take for Ryan Grubb to call a sneak, like we talked about earlier with Geno?
Man, I told Mookie, hey Mookie, I think they're allergic to it, man. Like
they honestly might be. And this is true, Byron Murphy played a lot of fullback when he was at Texas. Turn and hand Byron Murphy the ball. Like, do something that changes it.
Is that where we're coming to now? Like that.
You might have to, man. Like, I don't know what else to do.
But again, Geno Smith is more than capable of a quarterback sneak.
Here's a good one.
Turning around to Zach Charbonnet is just
Golden Hawk. What happens first? Kenny Mack run play or Byron Murphy run play? That is a really honestly good question.
Are we going to get Kenny Mack a touch at the RB spot this year? I mean, I just think like get him in for a series. He's dressing, right? Like bring him in, have a different look. Just see what I mean, you saw what he did in preseason, right? I mean, he looks like he can be dynamic in the run game. And if he's not, he's not. But I think a lot of people just want to see him get on the field. But what's your take?
I would like to see Kenny Mack get some touches, and I don't know why not. And the other guy too that is an interesting one is George Halani. Like, he was really good in the preseason as well. Like, I think for Seattle, one of their biggest things in this offseason is going to be fixing the O-line, which we talked about, which I will say this. We haven't really touched on it in the offensive part of the show. Lamea actually played well today. He looked the part.
His first game.
He had some rocky rookie moments with penalties, but he anchored a lot better than Christian Haynes did. He did get blown up on a run play in the goal line, which I think is going to happen, but he actually looked pretty good to me, and I'm excited to see him start again. I think that's going to be one thing is they got to figure out what type of running team they want to be, whether it's going to be a power run team, it's going to be a zone run team. They're kind of all over the place, and they need to find out what that identity is. Like when they had Tom Cable, They were a zone team with cut blocks in it. That's what they were built in to do. And then when they got to Mike Solari, they became more of a power run scheme team with Mike Solari.
Right.
They need to find out what they are. And this half bag one, half bag of the other shit isn't going to cut it. So it'll be interesting to see. MWN comes in. I think I heard Doug Peterson, if he gets fired from Jacksonville. Yeah, there's a possibility maybe it is Doug Peterson. They might bring him in. He's another guy I'd be okay with.
We
if it's
talked about
Kafka
Doug.
or Doug Peterson, I wouldn't be opposed to either one.
I think
So
you're
that's
just off
something.
Ryan. I think you're just off Ryan Grubb right now, and you have every right to be. I think right
Yep.
now you're thinking, hey, I'll take Doug Peterson in here, which is wouldn't be a bad option regardless. But I think at this point, it's like it just doesn't feel like a fit. And
It doesn't
I
feel like a fit at all. I
doesn't
think
feel
Ryan
like a
Grubb,
fit.
honestly, I don't know if Ryan Grubb is an NFL fit.
Sure,
And
you might be
think
bang
part
on
of that is I think the way the college game works, and I don't think it's a schematic necessarily that's not an NFL fit. I think it's his style of how he calls a game doesn't fit in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes just the way that it is. It's just you're the way you call plays and the way you build your play sheet every week and stuff just doesn't work in the NFL game.
Yeah.
Mookie's got another one here. The Seahawks only had 8 drives and put up 20 points, but the problem is there's such an unexplosive offense. They don't have a 20+ 1 yard run from the running back since week 7. That's bad. This is the thing with Grubb, and I could see this being more of an overreaction if we were in week 5 or week 7.
Yeah, we're in week 13.
13, going on to week 14.
Yeah, with no sense of change or anything.
And no feeling that it's coming. I don't feel that it's
like
coming.
you said, looking worse is. I agree, dude. Like there are times it's looking worse. Like it feels like there's even less flow to this offense. No real plan. It just feels scattered. Sometimes they're lining up here. Sometimes they're rushing up the line, and then I think they seem to stop the look over to the sideline stuff the last couple of weeks. But it's just always something. It's not a consistent thing, man. Yeah, it just might be a thing where it's just what I took a shot. I hired this guy at UW. Did a lot of good things down in college. Gave him a shot, and it's just not working. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to hit on everything.
No,
and maybe didn't hit on the special teams coach either. So I mean, maybe a couple things.
That's another thing all to itself.
But if you look at it overall, you had an almost entirely brand new coaching staff. So realistically, to sit here and be like to think you were going to hit on every single guy, you got to put that in perspective.
100%.
So you got to look at it like that too.
And that's the thing. And so, like John Doe here goes, wasn't Jake Peete signed to be Grubb's successor? If he left for a head coaching job, that won't be happening now. They did bring in Jake Peete, yes, to potentially be the successor. I think there's a chance they still keep Jake Peete potentially in the passing game coordinator role. And he could be an option to maybe still replace Grubb as an OC. Because, again, the thing that's to me about this is how much does Jake Peete actually have to say on game, like calls in game, versus how much is his job more helping to script what should be open and going through the film and pointing out the areas. Because again, our passing game works. It's not horrible. Again, Gino was 20 or 31 for 209 today and a touchdown. Like we are, like Gino's a high percentage completion passer and so on, but it's more about how things are being called, how things are being designed, and that's more on Grubb.
Yeah.
That's Grubb's thing. So, Mookie in here again. Like, guys, we love all these comments. Keep firing them in. Grubb felt like a hire made when they weren't totally committed to keeping Gino. I agree. I think that's another part of this, too. Like, if they're going to keep Gino, I don't know if Grubb's the guy for him. So, here's another one from Ian. Would John Schneider be under more a microscope this offseason since Grubb was so more of a John hire? That's another fair question. Like, John did have a big say in the staff that got assembled. I think he had more say on the offensive side than he did the defensive side. I think you can see now the way the defense is coming together and playing that, and the staff itself, you can see the Mike McDonald reasoning behind some of his picks. Dirty, even though he's the DC, he's also the D line. He's really unlocked Leonard Williams and made him really, worth the money that we're paying him and becoming an impact player, a blue chip player. So yeah, I think that's another interesting point. John did have a lot to say.
I'll say this, and I know we talked about John in the hot seat. My opinion is the fact that I get it, but the fact that this defense is now starting to come together and really look like a legit unit, I think that takes a lot of heat off John. I really do, because he's the GM of the whole team. You can talk about this hire and that hire, but he also brought in, like you said, he hit it out of the park with Ernest Jones. So there's some things that, what have you done for me lately? And I think when this year ends, if this team makes the playoffs, and I'm speaking on like what ownership is going to look at. If this team makes the playoffs and this defense is a lot better than last year, which they're trending that way right now, I don't think John Schneider's going anywhere. I don't. I just think that he's going to be safe.
Potentially. An interesting tweet just came across my my screen right now, and it's I highly recommend anyone that wants to understand quarterback play, and get the kind of the ins and the outs of it. Go follow Kurt Warner's page. He just put out a thing. QB's getting blasted every week due to no pressure plan, no hot answers, and sliding protection in ways that put them in bad positions. Why is this an epidemic in the NFL? Seattle isn't the only team that's having these struggles, but you can see them being highlighted more and more within Seattle's offense, that we have a massive problem with our play calling. Like, there are no hot answers for Geno. If they blitz, if they do something, Geno is waiting for guys to get open downfield and plays to develop. So, it'll be really interesting. Kurt Warner is probably, guys, honestly, one of the main ones I follow, because he speaks a lot of the same things in the ways I believe the QB position should be played, called, and done. So I highly recommend following his Twitter handle if you have Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, because he puts out great stuff every week. I repost it, so if you're following me, you'll see it come through on my feed as a repost. He's very insightful on it, and he speaks the truth about a lot of the issues offensive coordinators are putting their quarterbacks in during the season. So it's a really good thing to have a read at. Here's another one from John Doe. Geno under Waldron had 30 TDs and 10 interceptions. 20 TDs, 10 interceptions. Geno under Ryan Grubb, 13 TDs, 12 interceptions. Again, those are numbers, those are stats. And as much as we hated what Waldron did here, Geno was pretty effective under Waldron. They had ups and downs. Like, there were, as we know, halves to each season where he'd be hot for a half of it and then fall off. It'll be interesting to just see what they do going forward with this. And I think it's going to become more and more of a question, because you got to think, we've got the Cardinals this week. Then we got Sunday night at home versus Green Bay. Then we've got Minnesota. Then we've got the Bears, and then we got the Rams. 2 out of the remaining 5 games are at home, and they're not against easy opponents. And if our offense isn't functioning, that's a lot to ask of our defense.
It is, but at the same time, this defense is rolling. So, and I get it; it's a lot to ask, and this offense got to get it. But I think the fans are pumped right now because this defense is rolling. And if it, like I mentioned earlier, if it's one thing, let's get this defense right. I think we wouldn't trade it. We wouldn't trade it for like, okay, let's get this high-powered offense rolling. This defense is still giving up 200, 250 yards on the ground, because I think that's just a nightmare. So I'm loving the way this defense is rolling, and you put it all in perspective, and we talked about the issues. And at the end of the day, right now we're 7-5. Let's take this last one here before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
What do you got here?
So it's Lou. He says, feel like Schneider gave the reins to Mike Mack to get the team right and back to Seahawks football. Defense gets the fans excited. Go Hawks. It's true. The defense is exciting to watch again. They're fun to watch. Like, when the defense steps out on the field, I'm like, yeah, let's watch these guys go do something special. Like Spoons.
Leonard Williams. I mean,
like, I look at our team and we talk about blue chip players. and we've always talked about how many blue chip players do we potentially have on this roster.
Potentially, you're getting a couple right now.
You're getting a couple. I think you got Leonard Williams.
Yeah,
Ernest Jones is one.
Spoon's developing into one.
Spoon's developing into one. Julian Love, I would say, is one. Like Julian Love's really taken a step.
He's becoming that. He's becoming that leader too.
He's becoming the leader in the back end,
which is huge.
I think Kobe Bryant is turning into one slowly. Like Kobe on that blitz at the end of the game, and again, he was all around the football.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call him a blue chip, but I mean, he's
turning into potentially being another one.
Yeah, I mean, I like his play. I like his play for sure. I mean,
he adds another element to it, and you know, but then you flip on the other side, and that's what I mean. Like the defense is carrying a lot more of the promise and future of this team than in some ways our offenses. Yes, JSN's played really well lately, but you look at guys that we thought going into this that were blue chip, like K9. K9 is having such a strugglesome year because of the fact of how games are being called and whether they're putting the ball in his hands. Like there's just things that I look at, man, and I'm just, you know, and I know, you know, we're going to get out of here shortly here and you know, get off of this, but there's so many things I look at with just the weapons they have, and I'm like, how is this not working? And it's not just the O-line, and it's not just Gino. You got to go above that at a point. Like, you know, I was on the New York Jets show, and I was talking with Blair there, and he said the problems with the Jets are above, you know, the play on the field necessarily. It's the owner, it's the GM, it's the head coach. Well, above the players, in the case of them not performing great when it comes to the offense, you look at who's sitting upstairs. Ryan Grubb, and you've got Charles London telling the plays and talking and communicating with Gino because Pete's and Grubb are up in the booth. You know, I'm out on Grubb, and I you know, it would have to take a miraculous turnaround of consistency and them putting up like 30 points and us lighting teams up for me to truly feel comfortable with bringing him back. So that's my final thing on it for tonight.
Yeah.
Well, but
you know what? And he's got 5 games to do it, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, man, I'm in total agreement with you. So let's just let's get this thing rolling. Keep it rolling. 7-5, first in the division. We head over to Arizona, play the Cardinals. Let's keep this thing rolling, man. We appreciate everyone that's kind of coming on the show. Questions, comments. We tried to get to most of them tonight, and yeah. So, guys, look out for a couple of good pods we got coming up here. We have Mookie Alexander with Pulse of the Hawks coming. He's coming back tomorrow, and that's going to be an awesome show, breaking it down, breaking the win down, the Wild game today in New York. So we're going to get his take, and then we also have Greg Bell coming back on the show. Greg's been on a couple times, and he is a beat writer for the Hawks. He's awesome, doesn't sugarcoat it, so it's going to be awesome to get Greg's insight. So that's it tonight. Hawks, another win, and 7-5, getting the hell out of New York and getting ready to get back to work this week. That's it for us. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.